Marvel has been copying characters from DC for a really long time now. Backstories, powers, personalities, they've copied a ton of stuff. And DC has been doing pretty much the same thing, copying characters from Marvel. Maybe this happened because a writer wanted to write a character from the other camp, but they couldn't. So they settled by creating a cheap knockoff of the original. Maybe the companies just hated each other and created the characters just to spite each other. Or maybe it's just fluke. Here are just a handful of characters that are probably copied from the other comic book company. Aquaman is pretty popular, considering he's one of the big seven of the Justice League. He's featured rather prominently in the Justice League cartoon, and Jason Momoa played him in 2 films. Aquaman can talk to fish. In the cartoons and in a lot of comics, he's kind of conceited, and he's king of the seas, like Namor, who is or does all of those things. Namor also happens to be created 2 whole years before Aquaman. One of Superman's villains is called the Atomic Skull. He's got a skull for a face. He blasts people with atomic blasts. I think at one point of time he was even riding a motorcycle, like the Ghost Rider, who the Atomic Skull was clearly copied from. This is probably more chance than design. Swamp Thing came out only a month after Man-Thing. Both were swamp monsters. They both look very similar, to the extent that for a long time I genuinely thought they were one and the same. And then Alan Moore went and wrote this goddamn brilliant Swamp Thing comic, and the rest is history. Come to think of it, the characters are really similar. It may not be too foolish to think that they were copied from one another. Cat burglars who fell in love with the hero of the comic. Am I talking about Catwoman? Am I talking about the Black Cat? Who knows? What I do know is that Catwoman was created a whole 40 years before the Black Cat debuted in Spider-Man. It's uncanny how similar characters from both these universes are. It's like the companies aren't even trying to hide the fact that they're copying from one another. Deadpool is hugely popular thanks to Ryan Reynolds, but Deadpool is basically a ripoff of a considerably less popular DC character, a super soldier who gained enhanced physical and mental abilities, Deathstroke. Creator Rob Liefeld in fact admitted that Deathstroke was an inspiration for Deadpool. Deathstroke features rather prominently in the Teen Titans and the Batman comics, but he isn't as popular as his Marvel counterpart. Green Arrow is mostly a Batman ripoff. Both have no superpowers, both use advanced technology, if you can call arrows advanced technology, to fight evil. They're both largely fighting crime. One has a bat cave while the other has an arrow cave. One has an arrow car while the other has a bat car. They're both billionaires. There's just so much Green Arrow has borrowed from the Batman, it's ridiculous. Green Arrow subsequently was copied by Marvel's Hawkeye. Hawkeye in fact came out 20 years after the Green Arrow. Both Green Arrow and Hawkeye use nothing but a bow and trick arrows to beat their opponents, which in a superhero world seems like a pretty stupid thing to do. But that's not what we are here to talk about. I like Green Arrow simply because he's a DC character and I'm a huge DC fan. But then Matt Fraction wrote Hawkeye, which was a brilliant series, so I don't know anymore. I know very little about Dr. Fate other than the fact that he does a bunch of magic and he has an enchanted helmet of some sort that's controlled by a being called Nobu. If you tweak Dr. Fate a little, keeping all the magic the same, you get another Doctor, Doctor Strange. Again, the two came out 20 years apart, Fate followed by Strange, but Doctor Strange seems to be more popular now thanks to the Doctor Strange films that have come out. The Elongated Man is a detective who can stretch all parts of his body to great lengths and in all directions. Obligatory dirty joke aside, I really like Ralph Dibny, the one we got to see in the Flash TV show. He was a hoot. Incidentally, Ralph's first comic appearance was also in a Flash comic book, issue 112. Reed Richards is a scientist who can stretch all parts of his body to great lengths and in all directions. Reed Richards appeared in comic books a year after Ralph Dibny, and both are unusually similar in all ways except their chosen professions. Darkseid appeared in DC Comics first in 1970, and he is DC's resident big bad. A little god, Darkseid is deadly for the DC universe. The fact that Superman and, believe it or not, Batman face off against Darkseid, it's ridiculous. In 1973, Jim Starlin took Darkseid, repurposed him into a Marvel character, and called him Thanos. Jim Starlin, in fact, somewhere admitted that he's copied Darkseid. The two look exactly the same. are godlike figures and are all out bad guys to the extent that I'm confused sometimes between who's who. Quicksilver is such a blatant ripoff of the Flash. I mean, the dude's only superpower is running fast, and that is exactly what the Flash does. The Flash, though, is also part of the Justice League, and he's been written by comic book legends like Mark Waid, Grant Morrison, and also Mark Miller. So I actually like the Flash much more. Not that I don't like Quicksilver, I just like the Flash a lot more. Batman is probably DC's greatest character today. Yesterday it was probably Superman, but today it's Batman. There are a bunch of monthly comics out there for Batman, about Batman 20 years ago, about Batman 50 years from now, about his sidekick, about his other sidekick, and about his other sidekick, about his butler also, and about his mailman, about the fries he didn't eat last night, and there are just too many Batman comics out there right now. That's how popular he is. Batman is a detective, dressed in all black. He investigates crimes, big and small. He's an unstoppable martial artist. He uses bat-shaped projectiles when he can't be bothered to beat up people with his hands. He's an all-round badass. Much like Moon Knight, who is dressed in all white, but investigates crimes, is an unstoppable martial artist, uses moon-like projectiles, and is an all-round badass. Moon Knight came out over 35 years after the Batman did, and the similarities are undeniable. It's possible that some writer somewhere might be channeling his inner Batman while writing a Moon Knight story, but it seemed unlikely that he was really inspired by the Bat. I read A Midsummer's Nightmare and fell in love with the Justice League, a group of DC heroes, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and a bunch of others all working together. While Midsummer's Nightmare is a fine example of how great Justice League stories can be, there have been great Justice League stories even before Midsummer's Nightmare. Like The Nail, Keith Giffen and J.M. Day Mathias's run, especially the one where Guy Gardner gets his lights punched out by the Batman. The Justice League, in fact, premiered back in the 1960s, and we've been getting fantastic comics ever since. But just 3 years after the Justice League premiered, we got the Avengers, a team of Marvel superheroes working together. I'm not saying Marvel ripped off DC's idea by putting together their best heroes. I'm just saying the move is rather suspicious. And that's my list of DC and Marvel heroes that have probably been copied from one another. Do you know any more? Let me know. That's it from me at the Gutter Space. Until next time, bye-bye.